Right, so you should have a sheet that says converting fractions to decimals, A. Okay, so it should look like that. All right. We've talked about it before. The calculator that you can use on the GED is the TI-30XS Multi-View. I've got a whole section in Blackboard on the calculator. You can get them at all of your office supply places. Target sells them. I've not seen them in any of the Walmart stores. They're only about $18. To me, it's worth the investment so that you get familiar with using this calculator, because this is what, and even the online calculator is this calculator, maybe not, doesn't look like this, but it's all the same keys. And if you're not familiar with how to use it and haven't been practicing with it, then it could be an issue. Okay. So I'm going to be using the calculator and show you what you would need to do. I think I'm going to try to move this in a little closer. Okay. All right, so on this sheet, we are changing our fractions into a decimal. It does not tell us what to do if we have a fraction that doesn't end, or a decimal that doesn't end. So we're going to do rounding or the repeating decimal idea. Okay, so I'm going to turn my calculator on button right down here. It's solar powered. And in order to do this first problem, I'm going to hit the 4 divided by 6. It's that simple. 4 divided by 6. The number on top gets punched in first, divided by the number on the bottom. When I hit enter, I get 0.66666666666, and the calculator rounded it off way out there at the end. So the answer here is either, if we use the repeating format, it's 0.6 repeating. If we were told to round it, let's say for all of these, we're going to round to the nearest hundredths. Hundredths is 2 decimal places. Okay, so we're going to round everything to the nearest hundredths, which is 2 decimal places. So on my calculator, I can see, let me get the glare out of there, that I have a 0.66. So if I'm going to round to 2 decimal places, I look at the second decimal place, the 6, then we look next door. That 6 tells me to round the second 6 up. And so this is also 0.67 rounded to the nearest hundredth. Okay, going down the column. So I'm going to work down the column. I would punch in 11 divided by 12, and we get 0.916666666666. So again, doing that both ways, the 6 is repeating. So I could write 0.91 and then put a bar over the 6. Or if we're going to round that to 2 decimal places to the nearest hundredth, we look in the hundredths column, there's a 1. We look next door, we have a 6. The 6 tells us bump the 1 up to 2. And so rounded, this becomes 0.92. All right, 1/3. 1 divided by 3. We get 0.3333333333. That means the 3 is repeating. So writing that as a repeating decimal, I would write that. But if I have to round it to the nearest hundredth is the second decimal place. We look next door, we have a 3. That tells us we keep the 3. And so this would round to 0.33. The next one, 2 divided by 5. We get 0.4. So that is called a terminating decimal. It terminates, it stops, it ends. It doesn't keep going forever. And so it is simply 0.4. Now, if you were told to round it to the nearest hundredth, that is not the correct answer. If we need to round this to the nearest hundredth, there is no digit in the hundredths place for us to look next door. So if we're rounding this to the nearest hundredth, we should put a 0 on the end. So without being told to round it, it would be 0.4. If you're told to round it, then you've got to round it to the decimal place that it tells you to round it to. All right, let's look at the next one, 8/11ths. So I'm going to punch in my calculator 8 divided by 11. And I get 0.7272727272. That pattern is repeating, so that is a repeating decimal, and we would write 0.72 with a bar over the top of the 72. That's the pair of numbers that are repeating. If we're told to round that to the nearest hundredth, the 2 is in the hundredths place. So you tell me what that's going to round to the nearest hundredth. Looking at my calculator or your calculator, tell me what that's going to be when we round to the nearest hundredth. Nearest hundredth. All right, and those of you that put 73, be careful. That got to be careful of that decimal point. Should be. And we got more of you in class. Let's go. Everybody needs to participate. Looking at my calculator, looking at the hundredths place, look next door, then decide what does that round to if we're going to be rounding to 2 decimal places to the nearest hundredth. We're looking for how do we round 0.727272727272 to the nearest hundredth. What would that round to? All right. Correct answer is 0.73. We look at our second decimal place, the 2. We look next door, the 7. It tells us to round the 2 up to 3. Okay. The next one, 5/12. I want you to do 5/12, and I want you to tell me what the answer is. You do the 5/12 and tell me what the answer is. If it's right, if it repeats, tell me what the repeating is, and then tell me what it is rounded. If it terminates, then write what it is terminating. Okay, so let me punch that in and let's see what we get. So when I punch in 5 divided by 12, the 6 is what's repeating. So we write 0.416 repeating. But then to round that, we look at the hundredths place, which is 1. The number next door tells us to round that 1 up to 2. And so we write 0.42. 0.42. Okay. I want you to skip down to this one. 6/10. 6/10. Do that one for me. Okay. So when we punch that one in and we get 6 divided by 10, we get 0.6. But if we have to round that to the nearest hundredth, there is no digit in the hundredths place, so we just put a 0 in there. That would be rounding it to the nearest hundredth. Okay. I want you to do one more on your own. I want you to do 3/5. 3/5. 3/5. Okay. Interesting that we got the same number. When we punch in 3 divided by 5, we get 0.6 again. 0.6, and rounded is 0.60. Same answer. Well, the reason is 6/10 is 3/5. If you take the 3 and multiply it by 2 and take the 5 and multiply it by 2, you get 6/10. 6/10 reduces to 3/5. So the decimal values are going to be equivalent. Okay, the decimal values are equivalent because the fractions are equivalent. Okay, so it's important for you to understand that if the fractions are the same, the decimal amounts are going to be the same as well. Okay, now we're going to switch and we're going to do the other way around. Now, when we are in this case, we are going the opposite direction, and we are going to change the decimal into a fraction. Okay. The thing you have to remember with changing decimals into fractions is you have to look at the number of decimal places. You have to look at the number of decimal places because you need to put a 0 for each place after the 1 in the denominator. You'll see what that means in just a second. So you got to look at how many decimal places you have, and there has to be a 0 for each decimal place after the 1. All right, so let's look at the first one. I look at the first one and I have 2 decimal places. So that means that this fraction is going to be 1. What that is. Sorry about that. I've got 2 decimal places, so I have to put 2 zeros after the 1. Okay, so everything is in tenths or hundredths or thousandths or 10,000ths, etc. So since I have 2 decimal places, I have 2 zeros in my denominator after the 1. So everything's going to be either tenths or hundredths or thousandths. Okay, so then we write the actual value, which is 75. So we kind of hit on this a little bit when we were doing place value and doing the value of each digit. The 7 has a value of 7/10. The 5 has a value of 5/100. So the value of 0.75 is 75 hundredths. And now, anytime that you have a fraction that can be reduced, you need to reduce it. I know that 75 has 25 in it, and so does 100. So 75 divided by 25 is 3, and 100 divided by 25 is 4. So 0.75 is the same as 3/4. All right, let's go down the page. We have 0.1. There's 1 decimal place, so I'm going to put a 10 in the denominator. It's in the tenths. And we put a 1 on the top, and we get 1/10. 1/10 does not reduce. So 0.1 is the same as 1/10. All right, going down the column here, we got 2 decimal places. So that means this is going to be over 100. We're going to write 35 in the top. Okay, and we can reduce this fraction because 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So we get 7/20. 7/20. All right, let's look at number 6. I mean, 0.6. We have 1 decimal place, so this is going to be over 10, and then we write the amount up over the top. Okay, and then this will reduce. You're correct. 6 will reduce. We can divide both of these by 2, and we get 3/5. 3/5. All right. Go to the next one down. We have 0.3. What are we going to get when we change that to a fraction? Point 0.3 as a fraction. Point 0.3 as a fraction. Okay, good. 3/10, and that does not reduce. Okay, now I want to move over here to this one. 0.125. What is the fraction before we reduce? The fraction before we do any reducing. Asking for the fraction before we do any reducing. Okay, correct. 125 over 1,000. And 25 goes into both of those. 125 divided by 5. By 25, sorry. 125 divided by 25 is 5. And 1,000 divided by 25 is 40. But we can reduce that even further. Y'all are correct. 5 will go into 5 once, and 5 will go into 48. So we get 1/8. Okay. Now, there are some that are not on here, so I'm going to change a couple of these problems. Okay. I'm going to change this to 0.07. 0.07. What would that be as a fraction? Okay. We're changing 0.07 to a fraction. Okay, y'all are correct. We see that there are 2 decimal places, so I have to have 100 in the denominator, and then on the top we just have 7, so it's 7 over 100. Okay, I'm going to change this problem to 0.004. 0.004. Okay, so you're correct. It's 4 over 1,000. We have to have a 0 for each decimal place, but 4 over 1,000 will reduce. We can divide the top and bottom by 2, and we get 2 over 500. 2 over 500, but that can reduce even further. 2 over 500, we're not done. We can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. So actually 4 goes into 1,000. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 500 divided by 2 is 250. So the final reduced fraction is 250. All right, and now I want to show you something on this calculator, because this calculator is a fantastic calculator. All right, I'm going to do this next problem, but I'm going to do it on this calculator. So the way I would do it is I would punch in 0.25, and then if you look very closely, there are some green markings above some of the keys. And this marking right here is an F. I know that's kind of blurry. Let me see if it'll. It's an F with an arrow going back and forth and a D. That stands for convert fraction to decimal or decimal to fraction. So on my calculator, I've punched in 0.25, and since that thing is in green, that marking is in green, I have to hit the green key, the second key, and then hit the table key, which is the stuff up above. And now you see it says F arrow D. When I hit enter, it automatically changed my decimal into a fraction automatically without me doing anything. And it will be in reduced form. Notice that it's not 25 over 100, it is 1/4. It has already reduced the fraction for me. Okay, let me do another one. 0.15. So on my calculator, I would hit 0.15. And then the key that I'm going to hit, it's this in green F arrow D. But since it's above the table key, I have to hit the second button. And then I hit the table key, and it puts that up on the screen. And when I hit enter, it tells me that that is 3/20 already reduced for me 3/20. Okay. So do you see why you need to practice using this calculator? Because you probably would not have known that, and you would have, if you had pulled this calculator up on the GED test, you wouldn't have known what that key means. So I want you to practice using it. If you have this calculator, I want you to practice using it. If you don't have this calculator, I would go buy one. I really would. It's only $19, something like that, depending on where you go. You can get them on Amazon, and they'll be there in 2 days. Okay. No, you don't have to have a calculator. You don't have to. You will wish you did. You will wish you did have a calculator. Okay. Now, those of you that have an Android phone, in Blackboard, I have provided a link to a free app that is the simulator for this calculator. Let me see if I can. If you have an Apple, it does not work. Yes, they do give you one on the GED. But the problem is, if you haven't practiced using it, it's not going to do you any good other than to do simple arithmetic. You're not going to know what all that green stuff is up above there. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. On my phone, you can see it's called Calc 30. And when I load that, I pick which calculator I want, and it doesn't look exactly the same, but the keys match. Everything that's on the app, they're in the same exact spot. So see on the app, there's that F arrow D key above the table key. So instead of it being in green, this time it's in orange. So I would punch in like 0.15 second table and hit enter, and it gives me the answer there as 3/20. Okay, so if you have an Android, the app is Calc 30. Calc 30. If you have an Apple, sorry, it does not, there is no app for the Apple. Okay, so if you have an Android, I would load that app and get the calculator. Okay. All right. I'm now going to let you do some on your own. It's called Calc 30, and I think I have the link in Blackboard. Let me see here. I'll put it here. It's called Calc 30. But the link to the app is in Blackboard. Okay. So I'm going to give you some to work on. All right. I'm going to go ahead and show you the answers. I'm going to start with the fraction to decimal. This does not show them rounded to the nearest hundredth. It did not tell you to do that. I put it in the chat. So if you did, then this would be 0.67. This one would be 0.33. This would be 0.40. This would be 0.09. This would be 0.64. This would be 0.50. 0.67. 0.40. 0.42. And 0.50. couple of those might have been the same from the other sheet. So any questions on any of these converting the fraction into a decimal? Missed 1/11. All right, when you punched in 1/11, the calculator says 0909090909, and so that 09 is being repeated over and over and over again. Oh, if you rounded to the nearest tenth, then yes, that would be the correct answer, 0.1. So that would be correct to the nearest tenth. To the nearest hundredth, it would be 0.09. All right, let me get you the fraction sheet. All right, here's the decimals to fractions. And their reduced form. Any questions about any of those? You got 1/5 for the last one. Let's look at the last one. 0.5 would be 5/10. 5/10. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 10 twice.
If you liked this video, please click on the thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please click on the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when new videos are posted, please click the bell.